Welcome back. Now, at step 4, the carrier is going to ask, is there a causal relationship between the diabetes or its complications and the assigned restrictions and limitations and your inability to do either your own or any occupation? Now, I think that the key to getting your benefits is an APS form that has been supplemented with a Social Security Disability Residual Functional Capacity form. I generally will modify the APS forms with questions from that Social Security form to make sure that your physician is asked and answers all the right questions about your diabetes or its complications. The carrier is going to have their medical unit review your file and the APS forms to determine what they think your real restrictions and limitations might be. And unfortunately, they don't always accept what your physician has to say. They'll often hire a liar for hire medical gun who will say that there isn't any objective basis for the restrictions and limitations assigned by your physician. Now, I think one of the other reasons for having this Social Security Residual Functional Capacity form completed is that these forms will document the complications of advanced diabetes. So if you are having neuropathy that affects your extremities and causes difficulty with standing, walking, or using your hands, or you have acidosis, which is an increase in the acidity of the blood fluid, or you have diabetic neuropathy that causes problems with your vision, those are the kinds of things that I think can tip the scales in a disability insurance claim. And many times I find that carriers will only approve a diabetes claim in conjunction with one or more of other disabling conditions caused by diabetes. So you also may have complications or medical conditions caused by diabetes that will cause you to have cardiac issues, or you might have circulatory issues. Those are the kinds of other medical conditions that should be developed in conjunction with your diabetes claim and addressed by your physicians in the attending physician statement form. So what happens next after these forms have been filled out? The carrier is going to send your file to a vocational rehabilitation counselor to determine your occupation at the time you became disabled, the physical duties of your occupation, and whether you can perform those occupational duties based on whatever your restrictions and limitations are that the carrier thinks that are applicable. And you've got to show a causal relationship between those restrictions and limitations and your inability to do your own or any other occupation. So what is your occupation? Let's break out that policy and learn whether or not the policy defines your occupation on the Dictionary of Occupational Titles description, how it's performed for your employer, how it's performed in the national economy, how it's performed in the local economy. You need to know how the carrier is defining occupation, because that's going to be the test. Now, another game the carriers will play is to get your occupation wrong on purpose. Well, why would they do that? Because if they can pigeonhole you into a job that can be performed at the sedentary level, bingo, they have got a way to deny your claim. And that's particularly true when you're in the what's called the any occupation stage of your claim. And the carrier is going to be looking to tag you into a set of restrictions and limitations that will allow them to find a quote-unquote occupation that you can perform in view of your education, skills, and restrictions. Now, this, remember, is not a real-world test. And there will be using a transferable skills analysis to determine what skills you have that might transfer, and they might even do a labor market survey. It doesn't necessarily matter that these jobs really do exist and the people are hiring or that you could even get the job. As I said, this can be a mythical test. And one way to start attacking the basis of these vocational opinions is that residual functional capacity form and an APS form that's well completed. The next thing they're going to do is say, okay, are your activities of daily living forms consistent with what's in your medical records or what you tell the adjuster during a call? Now, they are going to be looking at your medical records. They're going to look to see how long you've had your symptoms, the nature of your symptoms, have those symptoms progressed or changed over time? What have you told them about your symptoms and how they impact your activities of daily living as compared to what you reported on the ADL form? What's been the nature of your treatment, any side effects of medication, and what is the impact of those side effects of medication on your restrictions and limitations. Now, generally, what I find is that if there's any inconsistency at all between the activities of daily living forms and what's in your medical records or what your doctor's filled out, it becomes fodder for them to either set you up for surveillance or to set you up for a statement to try to catch you in inconsistencies or even outright lies. The sixth thing they do is to see if they can apply a policy limitation that will limit how long they have to pay a claim. Now, there might be a subjective condition clause in your policy that will legally limit the carrier's obligation to pay. And they're going to be looking for that clause. They're also going to be playing with the stabilization of diabetes. In other words, if your condition is stable with medication, they're going to say that you can work and that you're simply refusing to work notwithstanding the progression of your diabetes or its complications. So you need to understand that these subjective policy limitation clauses will say that if you have problems with pain, fatigue, sleepiness, dizziness, all that sorts of things, those are really subjective conditions. And we're going to apply that policy limitation, notwithstanding the fact that your diabetes might be progressing or that you're having complications of treatment or that you even have other medical conditions caused or contributed to by your diabetes, such as a cardiac condition. So let's summarize. The 6-step evaluation process used by carriers in every disability claim involves 1, an analysis of whether your diabetes is a pre-existing condition. 2, whether there's objective medical evidence that's the basis for that diagnosis. 3, is there objective medical evidence that's the basis for the restrictions and limitations assigned by your physician? 4, is there objective evidence of a causal relationship between your diabetes and its complications and your restrictions and limitations with your inability to do your own or any occupation? And number 5, is what you say on your activities of daily living form consistent with what your medical records have to say or what you've told that adjuster during a call? And then lastly, does the policy have a limitation that lets them limit your benefits? I hope you've enjoyed this segment. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk next about myth busting. The myth is claims are won and lost with the attending physician statement form. And the APS form that the carrier has sent asks all the right questions of your doctors. So we're going to talk about myths next.